So, earlier when I was talking about Mikey and Nikki, I mentioned that it was one of two films that really inspired me to make my first short film. And the other one is this film here, called Stranger Than Paradise, by Jim Jarmusch. And this is his second feature, although it comes with his first feature, which was a much lower budget film called Permanent Vacation. And this movie stars two men, one named John Lurie and the other named Richard Edson. And Richard Edson was in Do the Right Thing. He was the younger son. He was the younger son who got along better with Mookie. And it's about John Lurie's character, a Hungarian American guy whose cousin from Hungary comes to visit him. And her name is Ava, played by Esther Ballant. But anyways, Jim Jarmusch made this with I think about $100,000 in 1984, and it's 90 minutes long. And he used a song by this guy, Screamin' Jay Hawkins. But the record company kept all the money. They didn't give any to Jay. And so after that, Jim Jarmusch went to go visit him in the trailer where he was living and gave him some money because he used his song. And they became friends, and Jay was in another Jim Jarmusch movie later. But anyway, this movie, Stranger Than Paradise, they live in New York, but they decide they want to go to Florida for some reason. I can't remember why. But they stop at in Ohio. I can't remember what city exactly. I think it's Cincinnati, but it could be Cleveland. I don't know. But it's where Jim Jarmusch is from. And when they were there, the entire cast and crew, about 16 people, stayed at. Sorry, I'm starting to lose my voice from talking this much. They stayed at Jim Jarmusch's parents' house, and I thought that was really, really cool. I like hearing about a young filmmaker doing whatever it takes to get a film made. And there's one scene where it was snowing really hard, and they didn't think it would snow, so they thought about quitting and shooting another day. But some other filmmaker inspired him to just deal with the weather. But that's his first feature, Stranger Than Paradise, and the Blu-ray and DVD, I guess, comes with Permanent Vacation. It also comes with a commentary that Jim Jarmusch did. And his second feature is called Down by Law. Can you see that? Is that focusing? Come on. Focus, will you? There it is. It's called Down by Law, starring John Lurie again, and Tom Waits, the singer-songwriter, and Roberto Benigni, this guy in the middle, Roberto Benigni. And it's set in New Orleans. John Lurie plays a pimp who goes to jail, and Tom Waits plays an ex-radio DJ who steals cars for money, and he gets busted. They both get busted and go to jail, so this is where they meet up in jail, and they plan a breakout. And they break out around in Louisiana, and it's a kind of noir, has a noir feel. This is Mystery Train. It's an anthology. This is the one where Screamin' Jay Hawkins was in. And it's 3 different groups of people whose lives kind of intertwine, but not fully, in Memphis, Tennessee. And there's this Japanese couple from Japan who are really into Elvis and Roy Orbison and who's the other guy? Carl Perkins. And so they go to Memphis to see all the sights and whatnot. And it's another group of guys. Who's in it? Steve Buscemi. Steve Buscemi's in it, and I think one of their friends kills somebody, and they're on the run from that, staying in these old hotels in Memphis. But apparently, I think when they were making this one, this is the one where when they were making this, shooting on location, you have to get permission from all the business owners on a street you want to shoot from to shoot. And this one guy didn't like it very much. He thought he was going to lose business, so every time they would try to shoot at night, he was always making noise and taking out the trash and whatnot, trying to disturb him. But hearing about that is just really interesting to me. And the Japanese girl, she wears a leather jacket that says like Mr. Baby on the back in big red letters. And apparently that was the title of a Launchers song. There's a Japanese surf rock band called the Launchers, and that got me into Japanese surf rock, which is really cool. This is another Jim Jarmusch film, Dead Man, starring Johnny Depp. It's set out in the Old West. It's a period piece in the 19th century West. And Johnny Depp, his character's name is William Blake. William Blake was a poet, but the character is an accountant. And this is a really beautiful film. It's one of those movies where almost every shot looks like something you would see in an artist's portfolio. But that man John Lurie, he had a little mini-series, I think it was for HBO, called Fishing with John, where he goes fishing with, in the first episode, he goes fishing with Jim Jarmusch, the director, and then the next episode, he goes with it's like a Matt Dillon, and then he goes to ice fishing with Willem Dafoe, one of my favorite actors, and goes to Jamaica with Tom Waits, and to Thailand with Dennis Hopper. So that's Fishing with John Lurie, from the Jim Jarmusch movies. He's a musician who has a band called the Lounge Lizards, and they're pretty cool. Got a lot of movies here. I'm losing my voice talking about them. So this movie, Ace in the Hole, was directed by Billy Wilder, starring Kirk Douglas. And a lot of people, when they do the Criterion Closet picks, they would pick this movie out. And it's about a newspaper man, I guess a journalist, goes to some podunk town, and someone gets trapped in a mine, and they cover it. One thing that's cool about this is This is a 3-disc set, actually. Maybe I have a DVD in here. Okay. Blu-ray and 2 DVDs. Anyway, I like the pamphlet it comes with. It's like a newspaper. And yeah, I'm not really well versed in old Hollywood movies, but I like this one a lot. Speaking of old Hollywood movies, here's one by the director Sam Fuller, Shock Corridor. Another journalist who wants to win the Pulitzer Prize by going into a psychiatric hospital, committing himself. And it's interesting. And this is, if you remember in the Chappelle Show, the character Clayton Bigsby, he's the black guy who's blind, and he is in the KKK. Well, there's a character in this movie who's a black man who's crazy and hates black people. So it's interesting to see how maybe that idea came from this. Although maybe Chappelle came up with that himself. Parallel thinking, you know. So this movie, Eating Raoul, was directed by a man named Paul Bartel, and he starred in it as well. And it's co-starring a woman named Mary Warrenoff, and apparently she was big with Andy Warhol's crew or whatever. And in this movie, they play an uptight couple in the early '80s, and in their apartment building, there's like a swingers couple who lives in the same hall as them or whatever. And the acting in this is a little sarcastic. You see that in Warhol movies, as well as Tom Jones. I don't have that movie, but I'd like to. And what's the other one? And John Waters films as well. But anyways, so it says, one night by accident they discover a way to simultaneously rid themselves of the perverts down the hall and realize their dream of opening a restaurant. So it's called Eating Raoul, and there's obviously some cannibalism in the movie. It's a comedy movie, but that's pretty cool. And this guy Paul Bartel, Jim Jarmusch gave him some kind of thanks in the credits of Stranger Than Paradise. So I guess maybe, I don't know, he hooked him up with some contacts or something. A lot of movies here, folks. A lot of movies. This one, The Big Chill. Can you see that? This is a movie from the 80s. Jeff Goldblum's in it. Glenn Close is in it. I don't know a lot of the other players, but their friend commits suicide, and they're all adults who were friends in college. And their friend from college commits suicide, so they all meet up with each other at a funeral and stay in this big plantation house in the town they grew up in and reminisce and whatnot. Here's a proper noir film, The Sweet Smell of Success. Who directed this? Alexander McKendrick. Starring Burt Lancaster and Tony Curtis. And I've only seen this movie once. It was made in 1957. And it's a noir film. It's a lot of the aspects of what I like with black and white movies, using shadows, fog, different lighting, silhouettes and stuff, backlighting, that kind of thing. Okay. Here's one. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. That's the Ralph Steadman art that Ralph Steadman did for the book. I have it over there on my bookshelf, but no need to get it. So I also have another copy of this, but this one has a commentary by Hunter S. Thompson. If you don't know, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas was a book written by Hunter S. Thompson in the 60s or 70s. And it's a big drug-filled kind of road trip story, and a lot of commentary on the state of things in the 60s and 70s. And it's a funny movie, and it looks good too. But yeah, this has a commentary with Terry Gilliam, and also one with Hunter S. Thompson. Oh, and it has one with Johnny Depp and Benicio del Toro, and also a producer, Layla Nabulsi. But so here's another box set. America Lost and Found, the BBS story. Now, what is the BBS story? There was some kind of movie production company. So what all did they produce? They did the movie Head, which is about the monkeys. The band, I think it's a fake band actually, that was made for like the TV. It also has Easy Rider, Dennis Hopper's movie. One of my favorite movies, 5 Easy Pieces. Starring Jack Nicholson, made in 1970. It's 98 minutes long. And he plays this oil worker who's married to Karen Black, who was in a lot of cool movies back in the day. And I think one of his, maybe his parents die or something, and he has to go back to Washington, where they're from, or maybe it's Maine. I don't know. But he goes there with his wife, Karen Black, and his family's very uptight musical family. And he kind of rejects that by working on the oil fields. But there's this scene in the first act where they're stuck in traffic. You can see there. Is it focusing? Is that in focus? They're stuck in traffic, and Jack Nicholson sees an upright piano on the back of a truck, and he gets out of the car and goes and plays it. But so anyway, he's very embarrassed by his wife, Karen Black, and I guess his friends in Texas, they're, kind of not hillbillies. Hillbillies live in the mountains, but rednecky types, hicks. And so anyways, when they go to Washington to visit their family, he puts his wife up in a hotel, and I don't want to give away the ending, but really good movie. The rest of them, I've only seen one, and this one called, is it picking up? Drive, he said. It's a basketball movie directed by Jack Nicholson, and it's the only movie directed by Jack Nicholson that I know of. But yeah, it's a basketball movie set in a college in 1970 with a lot of protests and whatnot. It's a cool movie. I haven't seen the other movies though. There's one. It's A Safe Place. The Last Picture Show. And this one looks cool. The King of Marvin Gardens. That looks pretty cool. And then a little booklet about the film production company, I guess. Yeah, I'm gonna have to speed along because I'm losing my voice, and I don't know. I'm afraid if I don't finish this today, it'll never get finished. At least my hair is looking good. Okay, so I guess this is a American film, but it's directed by David Cronenberg, Canadian filmmaker. Naked Lunch. The Naked Lunch was a book. I'm not sure if it's considered a novel. I think it's more of a collection of short stories written by Bill Burroughs. And but this is more autobiographical than just this is more autobiographical than just a adaptation of Naked Lunch. And I think it plays around with the term Kafkaesque or Kafkaesque. People get high off of bug exterminating powder. It's set in the Beat generation in the 50s. Bill Burroughs was considered a beat writer, and on the bug powder, typewriters turn into like bugs and different monsters and stuff. And yeah, that's an interpretation of the word Kafkaesque in relation to Naked Lunch, the book, starring Peter Weller. Peter Weller. I get him confused with Peter Sellers, of course, but directed by Cronenberg, so maybe it's considered a Canadian film, but I don't know. Still rolling? Okay. Let's get into some musical movies and documentaries. So this one is I guess it's just called Festival. About the Newport Folk Festival between the years 1963 and 1966. A film by Murray Lerner. And it's a collection of folk singers. And it looks like also blues singers as well, playing at the festival. Joan Baez, Bob Dylan, Howlin' Wolf, Johnny Cash, Son House, Peter, Paul and Mary. And there's some other lesser known bands that had some really cool music on this one. And what I like to do is watch this, and then afterwards watch this little number, the Monterey Pop Festival, 1967, The Summer of Love. And this is the one where Jimi Hendrix burns his guitar on stage, you know. Actually, the song Purple Haze, some people think it's about smoking weed, but it's actually about a particular batch of LSD that Owsley Bear made for that festival. And Jimi Hendrix is on it, Otis Redding, Simon and Garfunkel, Mamas and Papas, Hugh Masaleka, The Who, Big Brother with Janis Joplin, Ravi Shankar, Jefferson Airplane, Canned Heat, and Country Joe. Wow. But anyway, so that's, going further into the 60s. And then after that would be Woodstock, but that's not in the Criterion collection. But after that, Gimme Shelter, the Altamont Festival. So this is a documentary about the Rolling Stones' tour in 1969. And so this was considered as a disaster, the Altamont Festival. And looks a lot different than all the other festivals. You see people kind of freaking out more on drugs, and the Hells Angels were policing it, and they punched Marty Balin in the face. Someone got stabbed. There was like this pimp who tried to shoot somebody. But yeah, it's cool watching those, seeing the 60s music festivals play out. But this movie, it's called All That Jazz. It's a Bob Fosse movie starring Roy Scheider. And Roy Scheider plays a womanizing dance choreographer in New York. And putting on a play, and he has some kind of heart problem. And actually, I was hoping I could find it, but I have the soundtrack on vinyl. I just bought that from a record store. But anyways, yeah, really cool movie, this one. 1979, a little over 2 hours long. Moving on. David Byrne made this movie called True Stories, starring John Goodman. It's set in Texas in 1986. It's an hour and a half long. And yeah, this is another movie that I've only seen part of. I watched it once, but I fell asleep. I didn't get the whole thing, but it's got a good soundtrack. It's a cool movie from what I saw, at least. And this one, Hedwig and the Angry Inch. The Angry Inch. about a transsexual woman from East Germany, or East Berlin, during the Iron Curtain. Not a very well versed in history, sorry folks, but yeah, this is it was an off-Broadway musical, and this transsexual East German woman comes to the United States and meets some farm boy who loves classic rock, but then she shows him Lou Reed, Iggy Pop, and all that jazz, and then that guy gets big, and he kind of forgets about Hedwig, and Hedwig is part of a band that goes around playing little crappy places. It is a pretty cool movie. It stars what's his name? John Cameron Mitchell, and I think it was written for the screen and directed by John Cameron Mitchell. So that's always cool. And I think that's a good place to stop now.